Kay Morrison, you are standing for the District Council election in Netteswell and the Essex County Council in Harlow North. Firstly, why have you want to get involved in politics in Harlow?
That's a very good question. And the answer to that is probably something to do with my background, where I've come from, work-wise, that is, career-wise, if you could use that term. I'm a teacher. I've worked in secondary education mainly and then further education. But wherever I've been a trade unionist, nearly always the trade union rep. And in further education, I did a lot of that because in Scotland, which is where I did that work, the colleges are incorporated bodies still, and there is no national bargaining for lecturers, for any member of staff working in a further education college. So I became part of a team that fought for better conditions, pay increases, often represented members of staff, sometimes collective grievances, argued with the members of the board, the college board, and probably it was inevitable that I would join the Labour Party.
And up in Scotland, were you a councillor?
I was a councillor, yes. And so having joined the Labour Party and then having learned that the person who had been a councillor in the ward where I was then living, I thought, I wonder if I should stand for election. Should I stand for election? I mentioned this to my mother, who was back in Northern Ireland, and my mother said, "No, Kay, no. They'll no vote for you. You're no yin of them. You're no yin of them." Meaning, you're not one of them. You're Northern Irish, and for that reason, they probably won't vote for you, but instead for someone else. But they did. It was a miracle. I got in, but not by many.
So, a Northern Irish woman who stood in Scotland and was representing the people of Scotland in local politics is now down in Harlow. How are you enjoying campaigning, and what specific issues to Harlow have been coming up on the doorstep?
Yes, I realise what you've just described, that is my sort of career trajectory, is maybe a little unlikely, but yes, here I am in Harlow. I arrived in Essex in 2017. Someone, incidentally, you'll be very interested to hear this, someone recently said that I had been flown in. So it must have taken 3.5 years to fly me in, and that was some slow flight. I'm going to have to complain, I think, about that, the slowness of that. Anyway, I came down to Essex because I have a little family in Essex, and had been travelling up and down quite a lot for various family reasons, and then decided something has to give, and really wanted to get to Harlow because Harlow is where it's at. Harlow is where it's at. You know this in Essex because there is so much happening here. There's a dynamism about the town. It's also a new town, similar to Glenrothes, where I lived in Fife. So there are lots of similarities here for me, and I'm really enjoying the campaign. Really, really enjoying it.
What is it you're enjoying about the campaign? What is it you're enjoying about it?
I'm enjoying talking to people. Yes, I do quite like talking. You may have noticed this already. Getting to know the people, not just the Labour people or the Labour Party members or the activists, but the people at the doors, because I've had some really interesting conversations about all sorts of things. Some of them to do with Harlow and some of them to do with life in general and the state of human beings, especially now during this pandemic and now that we're coming out of lockdown.
Are you getting a sense, we've gone from Northern Ireland, Scotland to Harlow, you're now in a town which 27,510 people voted Conservative, and being dominated by Conservatives all across this county of 1.4 million people, are you getting a sense of the challenge ahead?
I'm very aware of that challenge. I became aware of it quite quickly after I arrived in 2017. I detected, it's fairly obvious really, there are a lot of Conservatives here and a lot of people are voting Conservative. But in Harlow, a lot of people vote Labour, and I'm delighted about that, and I'm hoping that a whole lot more will vote Labour this time round on the 6th of May. The issues you asked about that 2 questions ago, I think. I I've got to admit, and probably this is really tedious, people talk a lot about roads, about the condition of the roads, about the safety of the roads. A little while ago, I leathered on about a particular junction, Momples Road, Fifth Avenue, and how dangerous that is, the risks that people take, and the fact that we should take people's safety and their anxiety about that junction seriously. But people talk just as much, I would say, in general, right across Harlow, about, you've guessed it, potholes. Potholes, and there's so many jokes about these potholes. If you fell into one, you'd never be seen again.
But I'm starting to think, is this a single issue election?
No, it isn't, but it's what people want to talk about. There are lots of other things. The housing, as you will know, Harlow District Council is building houses, which is wonderful, social houses, council houses, and is going to pay no attention to that. That was a joke.
But there's 27,510 people who did. There wasn't a joke, it was real.
It was, yes. We have discovered during the campaign that some people are changing their minds.
Yeah.
Quite a lot of voters like our current leader, Labour Party leader, Keir Starmer. They see him as a steady hand and a steadying hand, somebody who has the right sorts of attitudes and values and who's going in the right direction. So some people have told us they voted Conservative last time, but they won't this time. And of course I'm very, very happy to hear that. I think those people are thinking the right way.
You mentioned leaders. You know, there's some Harlow Labour people who go on Twitter and say, this is a big test for Keir Starmer on May the 6th, and I'm looking at the opinion polls and he's way behind Boris Johnson. You know, what is that a concern for you as well?
Well, of course, I think about that sort of thing a lot. But I'm very positive by nature, and I know that Keir Starmer has made a difference. He has made a difference. I would like to see a bit more unity.
It's again, there's two votes.
You'll change your minds later. Yes, so he is making a difference, but this is a local government election. This is not a general election. And while the result on the 6th of may indicate a trend, a change, who knows? Analysts will certainly be looking at that, and there's a guy up in Strathclyde University, John Curtis, who will certainly be analysing every figure and will explain to us how it's all going, and sometimes is able to predict how it's likely to go. I wouldn't mind a conversation with him right now.
Have you experienced in politics, local politics, national politics? Do you think this Harlow election is a bit nasty? You all both seem to be at each other's throats, aren't you?
This is not nasty at all.
Oh, is this normal?
This is not nasty. If anything, this is quite humorous a lot of the time. Really, it is. Everything's relative. Everything is relative. I'm looking back on my experience, really, as an elected councillor, other campaigns that I've been involved in. Some of them have been really, really bitter. Very, very bitter. And those are unpleasant, and people are quite often unhappy during the campaign. And those people who go out and deliver leaflets and knock on doors and so on, it can affect their satisfaction during the whole campaign and their role in that campaign. This one, though, here in Harlow, while it's certainly heated sometimes, it's quite often humorous as well. It's oddly, a slightly odd, kind of humour, especially when we're talking about these potholes and people putting ducks and things in the potholes. But that's quite funny. That's funny, and I prefer this sort of campaign, I think.
So finally, if you get elected, is there? Do you think that? I guess I'm comparing it to the Glenrothes comparison.
Yeah.
Do you think Harlow, as a new town, as they call it, needs a punch above its weight? You think it needs a bigger profile?
Well, I think it would be really good if more people know and knew about Harlow, because there are really good things happening here. Maybe we need to shout from the rooftops a little bit more. Let everybody know, everybody in the United Kingdom know about what is happening here, about the hard work that's going on the ground. Those houses I mentioned earlier, people, councillors working extremely hard to improve people's quality of life, whether that is something quite small. It could be a repair to a house or something along those lines. If a person is worried about something, sometimes, to be absolutely honest, the worry isn't necessarily directly connected to the business of the county council or the district council, but you end up listening to somebody and helping them with some pertinent an issue that actually is relevant to the duties that you're supposed to have as a councillor. But yeah, I think so, because there is a lot of hard work. There's the playhouse. There are all kinds of things going on here in Harlow people certainly don't know about. There's a new industrial estate, those wonderful buildings that I've been having a look at. They're really impressive. I think Harlow has a lot to give and is going to give a whole lot more, and once I'm elected I'll make sure that happens.